I spent 18 months developing a groundbreaking cybersecurity system capable of predicting and neutralizing attacks before they even began. TitanTech seemed like the perfect place to bring it to life. Well-funded, innovative, and equipped with all the resources I needed. But what I didn't realize was that CEO Brandon Holt had a very different plan. Wait until my project was nearly complete, then steal it. My name is Maya Lin, and until yesterday I was the lead AI architect at TitanTech. I had left a stable, high-paying job at Microsoft to join this promising startup, bringing with me years of expertise and an idea I believed could revolutionize the cybersecurity industry. My creation, Sentinel Shield, was named after the ever-vigilant guardians in mythology. It could identify attack patterns before they fully materialized, generating adaptive defenses in real time. For a year and a half, I poured everything into this project, working 80-hour weeks to build Sentinel Shield from the ground up. Brandon would occasionally stop by my lab, making small talk, reviewing progress reports, and flashing that signature corporate smile, the kind that never quite reached his eyes. "Brilliant work, Maya," he'd say. "The board is ecstatic about your progress." 3 days ago, I reached a critical milestone. Sentinel Shield successfully intercepted and neutralized a highly sophisticated cyber attack simulation, all without human intervention. Not only did it work, but it exceeded expectations, identifying vulnerabilities I hadn't even explicitly programmed it to detect. The AI was learning, evolving. Excited by the breakthrough, I immediately scheduled a meeting with Brandon to present the results. His assistant Rachel squeezed me in for a brief 15-minute slot the next afternoon. When I arrived at his office, I found not just Brandon, but also the company's legal counsel, Andrea Fields, waiting for me. "Have a seat, Maya," Brandon gestured to the chair across from him, his expression unreadable. "Andrea's just here as a formality." Something in his tone made my stomach drop. I sat down, gripping my laptop, ready to showcase the demo. "Before we discuss Sentinel Shield," Brandon continued, sliding a document across the table, "we need to address some concerns about your employment agreement." Andrea cleared her throat, her voice devoid of emotion. "Section 14.3 of your contract states that any intellectual property developed using company resources belongs exclusively to TitanTech." I nodded, already anticipating where this was going. "I'm aware of standard IP clauses, but Sentinel Shield was conceptualized long before I joined TitanTech. I have documentation proving that." Andrea barely blinked. "While you may have had a basic idea, the fully functional system was developed here, on TitanTech's time, using TitanTech's resources." Brandon leaned forward, the pretense of friendliness dropping. "Let's be honest, Maya. Sentinel Shield belongs to TitanTech. The board believes your compensation package is more than fair for your contribution." I frowned. "Compensation package?" He gave a thin smile. "Your contract includes a success bonus. You'll receive a one-time payment of $300,000 once Sentinel Shield launches. That's more than generous by industry standards." The words hit me like a punch. $300,000 for a system that would be worth billions, for 18 months of relentless work, for my research, my innovation. Brandon, oblivious to my growing fury, continued. "Tomorrow, I'll be presenting Sentinel Shield to our biggest investors. We expect to secure an additional $75 million in funding. After that, we'll officially announce TitanTech's groundbreaking new cybersecurity solution." I stared at him, my hands tightening into fists. "You're firing me." Andrea sighed. "We're transitioning you out, effective immediately. Of course, with your bonus. Congratulations, Maya." Brandon smirked, a predator who had cornered his prey. "Your employment is officially terminated." But what he didn't realize was that I had anticipated this betrayal. And Sentinel Shield? Let's just say I had coded in a little surprise. The legal team confirmed its Sentinel Shield belonged to TitanTech under my contract. I should have fought back, threatened legal action, caused a scene. But instead a strange calm settled over me. They expected resistance. They were prepared for it. What they didn't know was that I was prepared, too. 6 months ago, I discovered that Brandon had accessed my secure development server after hours. Nothing had been taken, but the intrusion set off an alert I had embedded in the system. From that moment, I began building safeguards. Not just to protect Sentinel Shield from external threats, but from internal ones too. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, and handed over my laptop. Of course, Mr. Holt, I said smoothly. Good luck with the investor demo tomorrow. Security escorted me back to my office, watching closely as I packed my personal belongings into a cardboard box. I left the building badgeless, carrying that box like every other corporate cast-off. But unlike most, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I smiled to myself, thinking about the special piece of code I had embedded into the presentation, set to activate exactly 10 minutes into the demo. That night, I didn't panic. I didn't scramble for revenge. Instead, I ordered takeout, watched a few episodes of a mindless sitcom, and waited. At exactly 9:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was Rachel, Brandon's assistant. He wants to see you, she said without preamble. I glanced at the clock. It's almost 10 o'clock. He says it's urgent, she replied. A car is already on its way. 40 minutes later, I was back at TitanTech, escorted into the sleek conference room. Brandon sat alone at the head of the table. His usual polished, confident demeanor was gone. His tie was loosened, his hair a mess, and the veins in his temple were visible from where he had run his hands through his hair repeatedly. Fix it, he snapped the moment the door closed behind me. I took my time settling into a chair, deliberately slow. Fix what exactly? Don't play games, Maya, he seethed. You sabotaged the demo. I arched an eyebrow. How could I? I've been gone for 24 hours. Security watched me clean out my desk. I didn't take any devices. I didn't access any systems. Brandon slammed his hand on the table. The test run crashed the entire system. It started flagging threats that don't exist, generating thousands of false positives. It's completely unusable. I tilted my head. Sounds like a technical issue, I said, feigning innocence. Have you tried turning it off and on again? His face flushed an angry red. This isn't funny. We have 12 major investors coming tomorrow. There's $75 million on the line. Your investors, I corrected. Your system now. Brandon took a deep breath, forcing himself to regain composure. When he spoke again, his voice took on that same smooth, persuasive tone that had convinced so many, including me, to trust him. Look, perhaps we were hasty yesterday, he said. I'm prepared to discuss a more equitable arrangement, co-creator credit, a larger compensation package, maybe even some equity. I leaned back in my chair. What exactly happened during the test run? Brandon hesitated, debating how much to reveal. The system turned on itself. It started identifying TitanTech's own network components as threats. Then it started generating reports, hundreds of them, documenting what it called internal ethical breaches. I couldn't help but smile. Sentinel Shield is designed to identify threats, Brandon. All threats. His expression darkened. What did you do? I didn't sabotage anything, I said simply. Sentinel Shield is working exactly as designed. It's an AI system that learns and adapts to protect networks from malicious activity. During development, I fed it case studies of cyber attacks, including cases where the threat came from inside organizations. Brendan's face drained of color. You taught it to spy on us. I taught it to recognize threats wherever they originate. Understanding dawned in his eyes. The system wasn't malfunctioning. It had identified TitanTech itself as a security risk. Or, more specifically, him. Brandon's expression hardened. You can't prove any of that. I leaned back, keeping my face neutral. I don't need to. Sentinel Shield had been documenting everything for months. Every unauthorized access, every copied file, every modified document. It was all neatly compiled in the reports it generated, complete with timestamps, access logs, and recorded keystrokes. The silence that followed was profound. Brandon stared at me, the anger in his eyes slowly giving way to something more calculating. What do you want? I folded my hands on the table, full recognition as Sentinel Shield's creator and primary architect, 50% ownership of all related patents and intellectual property, a board seat to oversee its ethical implementation, and $10 million in compensation for your attempt to push me out. His jaw clenched. That's extortion. No, I corrected smoothly. That's negotiation. Extortion would be me sending those reports directly to the investors and the SEC. Brandon exhaled sharply, glaring at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The system, he said, voice tight. Can you fix it before tomorrow's demo? Sentinel Shield doesn't need fixing, I said. It just needs proper authorization protocols. Right now, it's flagging unauthorized commands because its creator, me, was removed from the authentication chain. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small flash drive and set it on the table between us. This contains a proper authentication update that will resolve the immediate issues, I said. Consider it a good faith gesture toward our new partnership. The contracts can be drawn up tomorrow. Brandon stared at the drive, then at me. And if I refuse? Then Sentinel Shield remains broken, I said simply. Your investor demo fails, and those internal ethical breach reports find their way into some very interested hands. For a moment I thought he might argue, but then, with a resigned exhale, he reached for the flash drive. You planned this all along, he muttered. I smiled. No, I corrected. I hoped it wouldn't be necessary. But after finding you in my secure server 6 months ago, I built in protections, for the system, and for myself. His eyes narrowed. How did you know I'd try to cut you out? I stood, picking up my bag. I didn't, I admitted. But Sentinel Shield is designed to recognize patterns and predict threats before they materialize. I gave him a pointed look. I guess some of that rubbed off on its creator. The next morning, I arrived at TitanTech as the newly appointed co-founder and chief technology officer. Brandon introduced me to the investors with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. The demo proceeded flawlessly. Sentinel Shield neutralized every simulated attack thrown at it with elegant precision. One investor, clearly impressed, turned to Brandon with an eager question. Amazing system, what inspired its development? Brandon hesitated just long enough for me to enjoy the moment. Then, with barely concealed reluctance, he answered. It was actually Maya's brainchild, her vision from the beginning. TitanTech just provided the environment for that vision to flourish. I smiled, stepping in to field technical questions. As I spoke, my phone buzzed with a notification. Sentinel Shield authentication restored. Threat neutralized. System integrity restored. Creator protections active. The AI was learning faster than I'd anticipated. It had recognized a threat, neutralized it, and safeguarded its future, just as designed. 3 months later, Sentinel Shield had its first commercial implementation, preventing a major cyber attack on a global banking network. The incident, which could have resulted in an estimated $340 million in damages, instead solidified Sentinel Shield as the gold standard in cybersecurity. Brandon and I maintained a professional relationship. He focused on business development, where his skills were genuinely valuable. I led technical innovation, where my expertise was irreplaceable. We were not friends, and we never would be. But we had reached an equilibrium that worked. Sometimes I wondered if I could have handled things differently, taken legal action, fought it out in court. But in the end, I had built something too powerful to be stolen. And I had ensured that no one, not even Brandon Holt, would ever control it without me. Brandon's attempted betrayal had revealed something far more important than just corporate greed. Technology is only as ethical as the people who control it. That realization became the foundation of how we now deploy Sentinel Shield. Every implementation includes robust ethical guardrails and transparency protocols to prevent misuse. The system doesn't just protect networks, it protects itself and its users from being exploited. Last week, as we celebrated Sentinel Shield's successful public offering, valuing the company at $4.2 billion, a young developer approached me at the event. What's the secret to building something so revolutionary, she asked, eyes filled with ambition. I smiled. It's not about the code, I told her. It's about understanding that the greatest security threats often come from where you least expect them. The real challenge wasn't just creating technology, it was ensuring it could adapt, evolve, and defend itself without compromising its core integrity. Build systems that can recognize threats, adapt to them, and neutralize them while maintaining their ethical foundation, I said. The developer nodded thoughtfully. I glanced at my phone, where a quiet notification from Sentinel Shield appeared. System integrity secured. Threat neutralized. Protections active. Just as it was designed to do. Just as its creator had learned to do. I want to hear from you. After everything I went through, after being betrayed, underestimated, and nearly erased from my own creation, I came out on the other side stronger, smarter, and in control of my own future. But I didn't do it alone. I had my experience, my instincts, and most importantly, the conviction to stand up for what was mine. So, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have fought back legally, taken the company to court, or walked away and started over? Do you think I made the right call in turning the tables on Brandon and securing my place at TitanTech? Leave a comment. I want to hear your thoughts, your advice, and even your own experiences with workplace betrayals and standing up for yourself. But more than that, I want you to take something valuable from this story. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this: you have to protect what you build. Whether it's your career, your ideas, or your personal boundaries, you are your own first line of defense. Never assume that others will act in good faith just because you do. Prepare for the worst, but position yourself for the best. Think about your own life. Are there places where you need to set boundaries, demand recognition, or protect your work? Maybe it's in your job, a personal relationship, or even a project you've poured your heart into. Whatever it is, don't let someone else take credit for what you built. So, here's my challenge to you. Stand up for yourself, share your thoughts, leave a comment, and let's start a conversation about protecting what's ours.